Hello, it's Joe, and in today's video I'm going to be going through some of the books that I think need to be adapted into either TV shows or films. So the first of these is Scythe by Neil Shusterman, and this is a YA dystopian book about a world where death has actually been cured, and the only way to die permanently is to be gleaned by someone who is a scythe. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's basically the gist of it. And I personally think that this would make for an amazing film. I think that the concept is really unique and it has like a dark theme that I think would lend itself really well to the big screen, and particularly in the type of film that I love, because I love quite dark films. And also I think you could do a lot with the costume design for this series. Like, in the right hands, I think that the scythes who tend to wear different coloured cloaks would look really good if the costume designer is good at the job. And I think they could even go as far as to give them masks, sort of on the lines of like Death Eaters from the Harry Potter films. I think that would be really cool, and I would absolutely love to see this adapted onto the big screen. Next up is The Diviners by Libba Bray, and this is a YA paranormal book about a group of people living in New York in the 1920s, and essentially there's a murder mystery going on, but they also have like certain powers, and yeah, it's really good. It's sort of a combination of Ghostbusters and Scooby-Doo, but like it's genuinely quite terrifying. And I think this would do really well as a TV show. I say TV show instead of film because there are quite a few perspectives in this book, and that, along with the fact that it's kind of a mystery paranormal type book, I think that would lend more to television than it would to film. However, if they did make it into a film, I would be here for that as well, but personally I would prefer it as a TV show. And I think that the 1920s New York vibe would be really cool to see on television. And also I just want to say that the casting would have to be really, really good for this, both in terms of accurately portraying the characters and their different races and sexualities and things like that. So yeah, if this was to be made into a TV show, then the casting would be really, really important. And if it was done well, I would be very excited about it. Next up is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is an adult epic fantasy book about a girl who accidentally summons a genie and gets whisked away to this fantasy land. However, it does start in ancient Egypt, which is quite cool, but then it does go quite quickly into like a fantasy world. And yeah, it's one of those really quite complex fantasies that if you're into fantasy, you'll really love it, but if fantasy is not your thing, then you really wouldn't. And I think this would do really well as a film. There are a lot of descriptions in this book of like places and clothes and people and different creatures and stuff like that. And personally, I want to see it all on a big screen, particularly the city of Davabad. I sort of picture it along the lines of Meereen from Game of Thrones, but even more grand and over the top, and I would really like to see that adapted onto a big screen. Next up is one that you're probably all expecting, because everyone knows that this needs to be adapted into a film, and that is of course The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is an adult historical fiction following a fictional movie star called Evelyn Hugo and the details of her life, including her 7 husbands. This was actually my favourite book of last year, and it just screams that it needs to be adapted into a film. And to be honest, we all deserve this in our lives as a film. I think the fact that it's 2 timelines and also the sort of Hollywood setting would lend really well to film. And again, like with The Diviners, I feel like the casting would be really important, particularly of Evelyn Hugo herself, because you'd need to get Evelyn Hugo as an older woman, and you'd also need to get Evelyn Hugo casted as like a young teenager, a middle-aged woman, a young adult woman. So basically the casting for Evelyn Hugo herself would be really good, and I'd love to see them cast someone unknown, because obviously there are quite a few actresses out there that would probably do the role justice, but I think based on the content of the story and the way that the story goes, that it would be more fitting for an actress that is unknown to get her starring role in this and blow up from it, because that's essentially what happens in the book. And also I think this would really appeal to a wider audience. For example, people that don't necessarily read and wouldn't pick up the book would really enjoy it as a film. So yeah, this needs to be adapted, and I will be extremely sad if it never is. Next up is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. This is a YA contemporary about a girl named Frances who is struggling with her decision of whether to go to uni or not. She's really into like school and stuff. However, she also loves this podcast called Universe City, and she thinks that she could be a great addition to that as well. And I think this would do really well as a Netflix TV series. So what made me think that is I recently watched Sex Education on Netflix, which is set in like a British school, and I think that Netflix could really adapt this book into being something along the lines of that. I mean, the stories aren't the same at all, but seeing all the young actors in that doing so well, it made me really want a Netflix TV show of this. And a lot happens in this book, so I think it would be really good to be like split up into episodes for a TV series rather than a film. Yeah, I don't think this is ever actually going to be adapted, but I personally would love to see it. Next up is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, and this is a historical fiction / romance about a travelling circus that only appears at night, and it's like a magical circus, and there is a competition between magicians, and there is a love story in here, and it's not my favourite book if I'm being honest, but I think I would really love this as a film. And I think it's actually been optioned for a film, but nothing's ever come of it. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that this was meant to be adapted into a film and it never actually happened. But I think it needs to happen, because like with Evelyn Hugo, I think this would really appeal to a wider audience of people that don't necessarily want to read the book. And the book itself creates this really rich and real atmosphere that I think would lend itself really well to film, if of course it was adapted properly. And I think that the circus itself would be something really special to behold on a screen, so I would really love to see that. And the last book that I think should be adapted is Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nagan. This is an Asian-inspired fantasy about a girl named Lei who becomes a paper girl for the king, and basically she is one of 9 paper girls that has to have sex with him regularly, unfortunately for her. So there are a lot of heavy topics in this book. However, I think it'd be really good being adapted as a film, especially recently because there's been a huge success of Asian representation in the media, what with To All the Boys I've Loved Before being adapted onto Netflix and doing really well, and of course Crazy Rich Asians. So I think that the world really needs an Asian-inspired fantasy, and I think this would really look good on a movie screen. I think that you could really do a lot with like the visuals and the costumes and the setting, and also there are like demons and stuff in this book, and I personally could not picture them for the life of me, so I need someone else to do it for me and put them on a screen so I can be like, oh, you know, that's what they look like. So yeah, I think this would be really good. So yeah, I think this could be like a spectacle on screen, you know, one of those films that is like stunning. Even if it isn't adapted really well and isn't technically a good film, I think that the visual art and like the costumes and the settings and stuff like that could be really good. So I would really love to see this adapted. So yeah, those are all the books that I think need to be adapted into films or TV shows. Let me know if there are any books that you think need to be adapted, or whether you agree with me in the ones that I chose or you disagree with me. Just let me know all that stuff in the comments below. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a like or a thumbs up. If you think you like more of my videos, then make sure to subscribe below. All of my social media links will be in the description. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. Hope you're having an amazing day. Goodbye.